Hello, you're watching UZREPORT News. My name is Davron Azizov, and here are the top headlines for today. Hungarian delegation held number of meetings with their Uzbek colleagues. The problem of abandoned dogs and dog shelters is under the loop of our reporters. Direct flights from Tashkent to Budapest, opening a branch of Debrecen University in Tashkent and continuing Exim Bank's cooperation with the Uzbek financial institutions. These issues were on the agenda of the 5th session of the Intergovernmental Commission on Trade, Economic, Scientific and Technical Cooperation between the countries.
Uzbekistan has a trusting relationship with Hungary, as evidenced by cooperation in finance, agriculture, and education. Last year alone, more than 1,000 Hungarian citizens visited Uzbekistan, 30% more than in 2018. In his address, the Minister of Investment and Foreign Trade of Uzbekistan proposed establishing direct contacts between tour operators of the two countries. The banking sector also deserves attention. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade of Hungary stressed the importance of continuing Exim Bank's cooperation with Uzbekistan financial institutions. The Hungarian minister also mentioned plans to commission a branch of the Hungarian University in Tashkent. In addition, Hungary supports Uzbekistan's membership in the WTO. The Uzbeks informed the audience about the latest changes in investment legislation. The meeting of the Intergovernmental Commission concluded with a protocol signed by both parties. The event also included business representatives from the two countries. Negotiations were held on agriculture, healthcare, animal husbandry, and winemaking, among others.
The president of Uzbekistan met with a Hungarian delegation led by the Minister of Foreign Economic Relations and Foreign Affairs, Peter Szijjártó, who is in Uzbekistan on a working visit to hold the meeting of a joint intergovernmental commission. The parties exchanged views on pressing issues of bilateral and regional cooperation, including in the format of a dialogue with the European Union. Particular attention was paid to the promotion and financing of joint investment projects that introduce Hungary's best practices and modern technologies. The meeting participants also discussed the prospects for the development of inter-regional links, implementation of programs in the banking sector, in the field of transport and human capacity development. A schedule of upcoming summit meetings was also considered.
The quarantine for Uzbek citizens who returned from China on February 4th has ended. Due to the aggravation of the coronavirus, the President of Uzbekistan dispatched Uzbekistan Airways to perform charter flights from Beijing and Wuhan early in February. More than 500 Uzbeks were evacuated from China and taken to special medical institutions and recreation areas in Tashkent and Tashkent province.
Evacuees were kept in the sanatorium under strict quarantine for 14 days. Until the end of this period, medical monitoring and special laboratory tests were carried out in full compliance with international standards. The results of the analysis showed that none of the citizens had this infection. It's all over now. The suitcases are packed, leaving only a couple of official procedures to be done. Ahead is a meeting with family and friends. And the students who turned out to be the majority here share their memories of how it was.
We
can say that all of us became like a large family here. We became friends. We agreed to visit each other and return to China together and keep in touch while there. We will never regret our time here. These were unforgettable 2 weeks. The gadget separation became the most challenging test for those in quarantine, but in the end, that's what united everyone.
Without phones and
laptops, it was a little difficult at first, but we met a lot of people and had fun together. What are your plans now? Will you go back to China? Of course I will. I'm looking forward to returning to my studies. I hope that soon a vaccine will be invented against the virus. Roads will be opened and we will return. The greatest intensity of emotions was waiting for us at the exit. It was there that relatives and friends of those in quarantine gathered early in the morning. Despite chilly weather, it always feels warm when you are with your family and friends.
Even though the number of women in Uzbekistan is slightly behind the number of men, their share among the economically active population to date exceeds 46%. 7 out of 10 people engaged in the education, health and social services sectors are women. On the 18th of February, Dilfuza Uralova has become the first woman to join the ranks of mayors. She was appointed mayor of Bayeux district of Sirdarya province.
During the parliamentary elections, 48 women deputies were elected to the legislative chamber of the Oli Majlis. President Shavkat Mirziyoyev said that in the modern Uzbekistan, women should not be just observers of democratic processes, but also active participants. At a session of the District Council of People's Deputies, Dilfuza Uralova was unanimously approved for the post of mayor of the Bayaud district. Before that, she worked as a deputy mayor and chairperson of the Women's Committee of the Sirdarya province. Thus, Dilfuza Uralova is now the only female mayor in Uzbekistan. But she is not the first female mayor ever been appointed to this post. For example, Manzura Egamova was the mayor of one of the districts in the Andijan province for 12 years. Shakarjan Hojniyazova was mayor of the Bagat district of the Horezm province. Tahiraxon Marizayeva was the mayor of the Kasansay district in the Namangan province for 10 years. Now, Dilfuza Uralova joins their ranks.
A seminar was held in the capital on the development of the national program Sustainable Forest Management in Uzbekistan. The event was organized by the State Forestry Committee in conjunction with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, which will provide technical support to the committee in creating a program designed through 2030.
A joint project of the FAO Representative Office in Uzbekistan and the Forestry Committee was launched in 2018. The next event brought together more than 50 participants, including not only domestic but also international forestry experts. The project is funded by the Global Environment Facility and is carried out at 4 test sites in forestry in the Namangan, Sirdarya, and Kashkadarya regions. As part of the program, measures are being taken to restore forests in desert and deteriorating areas, to create modern nurseries using Turkish technologies, to monitor forestry inventory using the latest GIS technologies, and to support the contribution of women to forest development. Forests account for 25% of the territory of Uzbekistan. The forests consist of 68 species of trees, 300 species of shrubs, and other varieties. However, only 7% of all the country's forests are covered with trees. Sustainable forest management plays a crucial role in achieving the FAO global goal to eradicate global hunger.
A meeting to discuss the economic potential of Uzbekistan was held in Amsterdam. The Dutch partner was the business association T-Network Group, which includes 16 Dutch companies operating in such sectors as textile production, flower growing, tourism, financial and legal services.
The founder of the T-Network Group Business Association opened the event, noting that in recent years, the Dutch business community has shown an unprecedented increasing interest in Uzbekistan. The ambassador of Uzbekistan to the Benelux countries provided information on upcoming major economic, investment, and tourism events. In particular, participants were invited to regional investment forums in Andijan, Jizak, Navoiy, Namangan, Samarkand, and Horezm. As a result of the event, an agreement was reached for members of the T-Network Business Association to visit Uzbekistan in 2020. The Dutch association also expressed practical interest in establishing cooperation in the textile, tourism, and agriculture sectors, as well as participation in the first Tashkent International Investment Forum in March this year.
We are very lucky to have met the ambassador of Uzbekistan today, who was so kind to give us information about Uzbekistan. We will certainly try to plan a visit with a few members of our T-Network group to Uzbekistan to see what kind of investments can exist for us there. I have been to Uzbekistan myself in 2015. I was there in September, and I visited, of course, the major tourist cities like Tashkent, Samarkand, Bukhara, and I also went to Khiva. And I also spent 6 hours driving from Bukhara to Khiva, so that gave me an opportunity to see some part of the country outside the major cities. What I found interesting was that, and also the Uzbek people there asked me this question, why are there no Turkish tourists? And there are so many Dutch and German, American, French tourists in Uzbekistan, but hardly any Turkish tourists. And that was really a question that I kept in mind. So in future, I have ties with tourist companies here in Holland. In future, I will certainly try to bring Uzbekistan to their attention and try to work a program with our T network group, how we can invest in the tourist sector as well.
As British author J.R. Eckerley once said, a dog has one aim in life: to bestow his heart. However, some people neither appreciate nor share this love. Some get a puppy as a toy for their kids, and once the puppy becomes an adult dog, they abandon it because it's no longer a toy, but a responsibility.
When abandoned pets are forced to fend for themselves and die of hunger and cold, many become victims of cruel individuals who kill animals for fun. Fortunately, the world has good people, and some of them made a dream come true by creating a dog rescue shelter. In the Hayat shelter, love of our little brothers is mutual. Every weekend, the volunteers and organizations visit the shelter to give the animals warmth and hope for better life. Even bitter experiences have not made dogs mean. In order to get to know the life of the shelter better, the UZREPORT team joined a volunteer group. We were told where to go to meet them. It was not difficult to recognize the volunteers. There were carts loaded with dog food next to them.
Конечно, проблем много.
Of course, there are many problems, but they do not scare us. We know that the shelter will develop. Iroda Matkarimova unconditionally took a lot of responsibility to address some of the problems. The number of volunteers changes every time because people are also busy with families, work, and their own daily activities.
The road to the animal shelter seemed long. We drove to the village of Maisky in the Tashkent region. We were overwhelmed with positive emotions in anticipation of meeting the animals. One of the volunteers asked the driver to stop car about a kilometer from the shelter. We saw a small trailer and 2 dead dogs lay on lawn near the road. It looked like a mother and puppy. We do not know the reasons for their death, but it was a sad scene. Then we arrived at the shelter. The dogs were so happy to see us, we could tell because they competed for attention, love, and food.
Каждое животное я знаю.
I know every animal well from the moment it arrives. Various animals appear here. Some are beaten, disabled, crippled. Some have no paws, ears, or tails. We immediately take them to the clinic and provide needed assistance. Then, over time, with the help of volunteers, we look for families.
Each animal has its own sad story, which they cannot tell us, but their sad eyes can. Volunteers shared their stories of learning about the shelter and meeting Iroda Matkarimova, head of the shelter.
In our neighborhood, for instance, young children mocked 3 puppies, and through Facebook I found her number. I called Iroda and asked her to pick these puppies up. She took them. I'm very grateful that she didn't refuse.
As Iroda Matkarimova has noted, the government authorities provided comprehensive support in organizing animal rescue shelter.
In 2018, we got official permission to get 3 hectares of land for our shelter. The permission was given by Kibray authorities. Then we began to settle here.
In recent years, thanks to the combined efforts of the government and many people, about 900 dogs have been placed. But this is not the limit for Hayat, the project manager notes. In addition to pens, quarantine zones and kitchen, future plans include a 2-story building that will house a vet clinic, a mini plant for the production of feed, and a crematorium. The current shelter will be converted to a quarantine zone for sick animals. Among the volunteers, there were both adults and small children. As the parents of young volunteers emphasized, love for animals should be instilled in childhood.
We are here with the family. We are surprised to see so many dogs here. I couldn't even imagine that we could have so many abandoned dogs in the city.
As it turned out, the ranks of volunteers were also replenished thanks to Yulia Moon's charity photo exhibition held in support of the shelter.
I love animals very much, and that's why I'm grateful to our government for creating such a charity foundation. Let's love animals.
As the organizers of the exhibition noted, the purpose of the event is to promote humane treatment and understanding toward animals.
This is a very important topic that Hayat Shelter highlights. In fact, you have to overcome a lot of difficulties to feed 900 dogs. The shelter always needs everything from cots to bedding and mattresses and anything that we can make kennels with, especially for winter. Building materials, cement, sand and cinder blocks. Everything is needed.
Recently, the Administrative Code of Uzbekistan was amended to toughen punishment for animal cruelty. Now, this entails a fine of up to $200. However, this is not helping much. The fines should be maximized and the punishment should be strengthened. But even this is still not enough. A major role in this belongs to the family and children's upbringing. Parents need to instill love and compassion for animals from early childhood. Visiting the Hayat shelter, we think that many will be surprised or alarmed, even those most indifferent toward dogs. Those who visit the shelter place will remember the feelings that the life of an animal depends on the attitude of a person toward it. It's impossible to offend someone who trustingly runs to you.
The Wall Street Journal has come under fire from Beijing as China's foreign ministry revoked the press credentials of 3 reporters on Wednesday after the US-based newspaper refused to apologise for a column with a headline calling China the real sick man of Asia. A ministry spokesman told a briefing that Beijing made several representations to the paper over the column from earlier this month, which China criticised as racist and critical of its efforts to combat the coronavirus epidemic. He said the paper failed to apologise or investigate those responsible. The newspaper said that Deputy Bureau Chief Josh Chin and reporters Chao Deng and Philip Wen have been ordered to leave the country in 5 days. Chin and Deng are US citizens and Wen is Australian. Foreigners are not allowed to work as journalists in China without official credentials, which are required to obtain a residence visa. China's actions come after the United States said on Tuesday it would begin treating 5 Chinese state-run media entities with US operations the same as foreign embassies, requiring them to register employees and US properties with the State Department.
Fresh air at last. Hundreds of passengers from the virus-hit cruise in Japan were allowed off on Wednesday. Nearly 4,000 people were on board when the ship was quarantined on February 3rd. The lucky ones still had access to sunlight from their balconies. Others were stuck in windowless cabins. The Diamond Princess and the people on it have been at the forefront of media attention for weeks. More than 540 people on board had tested positive for the virus. That's the biggest concentration of infections outside China. Countries are now queuing up to collect their citizens, including the city of Hong Kong, which reported its second death in the territory from the virus on Wednesday. The 70-year-old man is the 6th confirmed death outside the mainland. A Japanese official said it'll take days to get everyone off the ship, and passengers and crew who had shared a room with an infected person would have to stay on. Meanwhile, in China, the centre of the outbreak, there was a thread of optimism. New cases fell in the country for a second straight day, and excluding Hubei province, where the outbreak originated, the number of new infections totalled 56 on Tuesday. That's down from a peak of 890 just 2 weeks ago. The death toll, though, continues to climb. It's now past 2,000 people in China, and experts are warning it's still too early to tell if the epidemic has actually been contained.
Democratic presidential contender Michael Bloomberg will sell his company if he wins the election. That's according to his campaign on Tuesday. Bloomberg LP, the financial data and media company that made Bloomberg a billionaire, would be put in a blind trust and then sold. Bloomberg, the candidate, is one of the richest men in the world and a former mayor of New York City. He entered the race in November and has recently surged in opinion polls. In national polls released Tuesday, he pulled into second place behind frontrunner Bernie Sanders. It means he qualifies to take the debate stage with Democratic rivals for the first time in Nevada this week. Bloomberg's company generated an estimated $10 billion in revenue last year, and Reuters News competes with its news service. The candidate is not competing in the early voting states of the Democratic nomination process. Instead, he hopes to start winning votes on Super Tuesday, when 14 states head to nominating polls on March 3rd.
you couldn't ask for a better incubator for infection.
A top U.S. health official on Tuesday weighed in on the Diamond Princess, which has been quarantined off the port of Yokohama, Japan for weeks, and now has a staggering 542 infected passengers, according to the Japanese Health Ministry. Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the U.S. National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, at a discussion at the Council on Foreign Relations, weighed in on the conditions aboard the ship and what it could possibly reveal about the virus.
It confirms what we already know, that this is a highly transmissible virus. And that's one of the things that's of concern. You amplify that when you put it in a closed space. It could also tell us something about maybe some modalities of transmission that we didn't appreciate before. You know, we had a very interesting experience with SARS in Hong Kong in 2003, an apartment complex, the Amoy Gardens apartment complex. But there was something went on in that apartment where the virus actually got aerosolized, and it was felt that it was likely due to the plumbing, where, of course, you know, the virus gets into the stool and feces, that when people were flushing toilets, they didn't see this very invisible aerosolized that vertically transmitted it. So people who were on the second floor were giving it to people who were on the 10th floor. That's something that could possibly have been going on in the ship. We don't know.
Japan plans to start trials of HIV medications to treat coronavirus patients. HIV drugs have been touted as a potential cure for the coronavirus, which has killed almost 1,900 people in mainland China. No therapy has yet proven fully effective against the infection, and there is currently no cure. U.S. government evacuations on Monday flew home more than 300 Americans who had been on board the Diamond Princess. Some 3,000 passengers and crew are still on the ship.
European investors felt more optimistic about China's virus outbreak on Wednesday. Benchmark share indexes all made gains early in the day after Beijing said the number of new cases had dropped. London's FTSE was the strongest performer, up around 1%. Sentiment was also helped by media reports that China may soon provide more stimulus for its economy. But the worries are far from over for big business. Adidas, just the latest to warn of a hit to sales as a result of store closures in China. Shares in the sportswear maker still rose around 1% though, outperforming Germany's DAX index. European stocks were also helped by a weaker euro. More negative economic data out of Germany on Tuesday sent it crashing close to 3-year lows. That makes European shares cheaper for global investors. British Airways owner IAG was another to watch in early trade. That after Qatar Airways said it was upping its stake in the firm to just over 25%. IAG shares rose over 1% following the news. But for all the bullish sentiment, there was caution too, with traditional safe havens finding buyers. Gold made gains above $1,600 an ounce, and benchmark government bonds held steady. With data on the coronavirus outbreak so volatile, plenty of investors are still playing it safe.
And this was all for today. Thank you for watching UZREPORT News. Have a nice day. Goodbye.